No. 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 I do not want to do this song. No. Self-Determination by Stéphane Bura. What? I mean, that is gobbledygook. What does that mean? For? What? Why? I'm sorry I keep going over this, but I'm going to turn this off in a minute anyway. But how is that solvable from that? That is, well, I tell you what, Stefan, that's very clever. It is mental that this exists as a puzzle. I will totally give you that. But how one is meant to solve it? I mean, it's just not... I don't really know whether to continue this. I will say this. That is, I think, the most daunting rule set combined with grid I have ever seen on the channel. How does a human being, Stefan, I'm looking at you, how do you have the idea for this? How does it occur to you that this could have a solution? It boggles my mind. I've spent 7 minutes complaining. Do have a go. Oh, do have a go at this. If you've got a spare 6 months.
Very nice puzzle. That was a lot of fun. I think slightly friendlier than the other, but I'm not sure. It's possible I only think that because of the other first. They both were slightly mind-bending in different ways.
Ah, look, there's an interesting... So whatever we put in the grey cells has to make an appearance in one of those 3 squares. But whatever I put in this square can't be a 1, 2 or a 3. So there is a number that is not 1, 2 and 3 in these squares. So it's not possible for this to be a 2. I like this puzzle. This is very interesting. It's a bit mental the way you have to scan.
If this was an 8, that is very interesting. This cell over here could not be 8 or 7. 8 or 7 would then be there and there in box 3. And that doesn't work because they're pointing to the same cell down here, and yet they're pointing those 2 numbers into the same cell. So those 2 numbers would have to be the same, which breaks all Sudoku rules.
Given that these are all the column digits of these cells we need to point at, the only white cells in the grid are in this column. So these are all 8s. Da-da!
Hello everyone. Apologies for the slightly late start today. That's totally on me. For some reason, I had this in my calendar at 12. I don't know what happened there, but oh, it looks like I also didn't notice that my video is double flipped horizontally. Okay, that I should look normal now. Hello everyone. Welcome, Stefan.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Mine is flipped too. This is weird.
All right. We'll start off the interview with our thanking our patrons. Oh, Turganus' name is overlapping with your name a little bit in the overlay. But anyways, we'll deal with that. But in this first segment, we sort of asked some non-puzzle questions to give a little bit of a warm up. So, where do you live, Stefan?
So I live in France. Can you hear the charming accent? Because
Yeah.
I'm really no longer. I don't Great Britain English, the Queen's English, and when I had to work with Americans, I totally gave up. I'm trying to sound like an American. So I'm French. I live in Paris.
My fiance speaks French, but I don't speak very much French. I speak just a tiny bit of French from her. Yeah, Nell's comment. The audio is a little bit choppy for you sometimes. Stefan, if you could, I don't know, get closer to your mic or something like that.
Okay.
Whatever is comfortable for you, though.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's okay. What do you do for work if you're comfortable saying that?
My day job is game designer. I design video games. I consult with video game studios and video game publishers.
Cool.
So that's basically, well, that's also a big part of why I was attracted by this hobby. Because video game projects take a very long time, many years,
Yeah.
and they're made by big teams, and so you don't have a real sense of ownership like you can have when you're designing puzzles.
Yeah, not as much of a personal touch.
Exactly, and even if I always like when I collaborate with big teams on such big projects, it's a nice change of pace when I can make puzzles.
Definitely. Did you work on anything that we would know about?
Probably not, because what I do is I work with studios on concept stage or reviewing.
Yeah.
I did a 3-year project that ended last year, but that's not been released yet. So it's a weird life cycle, but it keeps me occupied and stimulated, and I really love this job. There is such a creative energy in video games,
Definitely.
and innovation. Even if it's starting to settle a little bit, you have genres, you have big games, AAA games that define what the public should look like Disney TV shows or movies. But there is also a very big indie scene that is
In indie scene, yeah.
yeah, that is always pushing the boundaries. So this is quite exciting.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's lots of independent studios that have had major impact on the scene. Like, thinking most recent example I would think of is now I can't think of the name of it, but not the most recent example, but definitely a big name. Oh, it's like a Harvest Moon type game, a Stardew Valley. That's what it is. Independent startup had a big impact, I
Yes,
think. Yeah.
and it was mostly done by one person.
Yeah,
Uh,
no one person.
and Baba SU, which was featured on the channel, on the CTC channel, was also a big hit and redefined what could be done with a very stale gameplay block pushing. So there are quite astounding games out there.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on from the video games, what's your favorite movie, TV show, video game, etc.?
My favorite TV show is a toss up between The Wire,
Oh, yeah.
because it's a description of a very complex system with people and stories that intersect that is so wonderful. And The West Wing, because it's politics with hope, which is something I miss. Very passionate people who believe in democracy and fight for it and fight the good fight. So it's very well written. Both are very well written, and so and my favorite movie, I really like. It's an old movie, but I really like Sleuth by Mankiewicz, which is with Michael Caine and Lawrence Oliver, and it's a battle of wits between two characters, and it's framed as a puzzle story also, and
Nice.
it's very. I highly recommend it.
Cool. Would you say you're more of an inside person or an outside person?
There's no doubt. I'm an inside person. I'm an introvert,
Yeah.
and yeah, I like being home, I like being alone. I really appreciate talking to you, but I mean that's introverts get back their energy by being alone, and I
Yeah.
totally feel that.
Do you have a favorite book? I noticed there's a bookshelf behind you and lots of
Yes.
books there.
Oh, yeah. This is a very small bookshelf, but I
Yeah.
lots of bookshelves. Favorite books? Wow, this is a very hard question. So nonfiction. Um, this is the work of Christopher Alexander. Christopher Alexander is an architect who totally revolutionized the way you can think about architecture, and his
Hmm.
shedewre is the nature of order, and it's totally wonderful because it helps you see the world differently. It helps you see how people, just like in the wire, people and systems interact, and how architecture is at the core of this, and it tries to define an objective beauty, which is hard to believe, but I'm convinced it's an amazing book.
Cool.
Fiction, so many. Lately, I've been reading Ursula Le Guin fiction, like Wizard of Earthsea, who created Wizard School before Wizard School were a thing,
Okay.
and 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 the mythical quality of her writing is so entrancing that I really like that.
Hmm. Cool. Um, favorite food?
Favorite
Favorite food
food?
or cuisine?
This is yes. I really like Asian cuisine. I try to cook some Asian dishes, and I discovered the secret, which is in the ingredients. So if you have the right ingredients, you can make awesome dishes without being a good cook. So that works for me.
Do you have any hobbies or big interests outside of puzzling?
Yeah, I consume a lot of media.
Hmm.
So TV shows, books, podcasts, and a lot of uh, stuff about making stuff like game design,
Hmm.
uh, video, books, architecture. Even if I don't plan on ever the architecture, um, science, technology, whatever. I'm an omnivore.
Cool.
And sometimes I make puzzles. I play a lot of board games too because a little bit for my work, but also I really like them.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a collection that is far too big, and, but yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any pets?
No, no, I
No, not a pet person.
don't.
Uh, how do you balance puzzling with the other things in your life?
It's hard. It's hard because I'm totally obsessive
Yeah.
when I puzzle, and so there was a period when I started puzzling that where it was the highest priority,
Yeah.
and I was totally obsessed by that, and thinking about that all the time. And now I don't have the time anymore. But when I'm sitting, I'm thinking about that all the time.
Yeah.
So I try to restrain myself. But when I find good ideas,
It's hard to put it
so
down.
no.
You're sorry, you're cutting out a little bit still.
I don't understand why. That's weird.
Uh,
Yeah.
you could try turning off like the automatic noise filter on Discord. Sometimes cuts out
Aha. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
a little bit too often. Depends on your voice and stuff.
Mhm.
Well, we can move on to the more puzzling focused questions. We'll start with sort of the hello, Naviri. We'll start with the question that I tend to ask most people first is, what was the first puzzle that you ever set? Oh, maybe turn back on the noise canceling actually, because now I can hear myself. Of course, we have to balance all these ridiculous things.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, it's back on. Is it better?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't hear myself now.
Okay, perfect.
Hopefully,
Well,
yeah, headphones do work, but uh, yeah,
sorry.
we'll make do if you don't have headphones on hand.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't remember how I came upon CTC, but it was a few months before the Miracle Sudoku, and I was transfixed because this is very close to my day job. What was happening on this channel, the amount of joy that was coming from the screen, just from solving a puzzle, from being good at solving the puzzle, from finding the intricacies, and I was smitten by Simon, and so I looked at the existing videos, and I came upon the the first hidden skyscrapers, the coup by Laura Soler, and
Hidden
and it was
skyscraper?
sorry,
Hidden skyscraper, you said?
the first hidden, yes, hidden.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and and I didn't know that it was possible to create such a puzzle. I'm a big fan of puzzles, of wooden puzzles, that kind of stuff, and the logic behind them. But I
Yeah.
didn't know that Sudoku could produce something like that, and I was amazed. And so I wanted to do something like that.
Yeah.
And I set the Sudoku that was called 4-bit Sudoku, and it is a very, very bad puzzle. I didn't know anything about Sudoku. It's a puzzle that is inspired by my favorite board game, Quarto, and so the rules are intricate and they're hard to grok, and you can totally bypass them because you can solve most of the puzzle by using the cages, and so you can. So I published when the solvers informed me of that, I published another version of it, exactly the same version, but the same puzzle, but without most of the cage clues. And
The hard version.
yes, and this time you have to follow the logic a bit. But I learned a lot. I learned that I had to understand Sudoku before I could make the puzzle.
Yeah.
That's an interesting discovery. And also I learned about the community and the richness of the types of puzzles that were there, and that I could have a place there because some people solved it and gave feedback, and so that was cool.
Yeah. The community is definitely cool. It's still getting a little bit of feedback, but I guess we'll have to deal with that if we don't have headphones on hand. I'll try to, I don't know, maybe I could turn down your volume or something on Discord. I'm not sure. If you can still hear me, that is.
Yeah, I can.
Hello, we're in chat, by the way. Welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Yes. So you started watching CTC before you started setting puzzles, obviously. You mentioned that. And you started watching CTC a few months before the Miracle Sudoku, right? How did you find CTC, if you remember that?
I don't remember. As I said before, when it comes to be honest, probably YouTube recommended to me because I watch a lot of puzzle channels, not Sudoku channels, but about physical puzzles.
Right.
And probably there was an overlap somewhere, so the algorithm for once did something right, and that's how I came upon it. But I really don't remember.
How long did it take from when you first started studying with that 4-bit Sudoku to get your own CTC feature?
A few months. So the first one was on July 2020. So yeah, a few months. I was totally surprised I didn't submit this puzzle. I didn't even imagine that I was making puzzles that were of high quality enough to be featured. So it was a surprise, a very pleasant surprise. So it was the pivot Sudoku.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one. And so I started setting arrow puzzles after seeing Matthias Martinka Norikabe Sudoku, which was islands and river and islands.
Yeah.
And this was another eye-opening video. When I saw that, it was unbelievable that you could twist the meaning of Sudoku this way with arrows, and I wanted to do that. So this was my first attempt, well, it's fine. It's fine. Today it wouldn't pass the bar, quality bar, but for the time it was innovative and fun enough. And so satisfying to see someone solving the puzzle, going through the logical steps, and as I said, Simon has this uncanny ability to communicate his enthusiasm. So well, it worked. It worked very well on me.
Yeah, definitely. The enthusiasm I think you mentioned, or the joy of the puzzle is
Yes.
conveyed. So was your process to set something like this or set the 4-bit Sudoku, is that similar to your process that you would use to set now, or has your process changed over time in how you set a puzzle?
It has changed because when I started, I didn't even know that there were tools to set Sudoku, that there were solvers. So my first Sudokus were done in a vector drawing tool or on Excel, and it was a lot of trial and error. And because I'm a good solver, it was very complicated to come up with rules and make an interesting puzzle that wouldn't be totally destroyed by the Sudoku part.
Right.
So now that I know a bit more, I have better tools, I can tackle the with more confidence the new rules.
What's your describe in a few words, what is your process now of how do you go from like a concept of a puzzle, like the first idea of it, to a finished product?
Well, I can tell you about my goal when I make a puzzle, because this is what drives me. So there is this idea of a moment of revelation, of insight, when you discover something or when you get good at a skill, and what Martin Garner calls the moment of insight. That he wrote a book with this title, and it was a book that I had when I was a kid, and I tried to create that. I tried to create a moment where you feel that you have an intimate understanding and intimate mastery of what's happening in front of you, and so everything is focused on this experience, and it's so when I think of a rule set, I think of how do I help you master the rule set? How because so I only make puzzles with only two exceptions with new rule sets. It's super hard to attain this level of insight, this moment of insight with existing mechanisms. At least for me, you have interviewed people who are exceptional at this. They can take existing mechanism and create these moments of insight. Oh, there is a new way of considering arrows or killer cages. I'm not good at that at all. So I take the path of least resistance and I invent my own rules and focus on making you master these rules. So, so my process is to come up with something that I find interesting and to share a couple of moments of insight with you, with the solver. And the whole puzzle is about this. So I try to start with a simple part of the puzzle when you understand, okay, I'm in a different world now, and I have to think differently. And if I've done my job right, there are layers. But I have a confession to make. I'm very impatient, and if I find that there is a good idea out there, I publish a puzzle about it, and so I don't think. Simon said of Fistomefel that when he makes a puzzle, it's or Michel Stolk, when they make a puzzle, it's a perfect iteration of the rule set. That's not my puzzles. My puzzles are, hey, look, there's a new shiny toy. Play with that, and as long as I can give you this one moment of insight. It's enough for me, and I publish it. And if I come back to the rule set, usually I try to make a better puzzle. But the first pivot Sudoku was just that, a puzzle. This new set, the first compass Sudoku I made, well, I was glad it worked. And it took a few puzzles for these rule set to become good, and some of them I've never come back to them. It's just okay. Here's an idea. I put it in the world, and if you like it, awesome. But so my process is, if it's the first time I set a puzzle with a rule set, I'm happy when it works, and if it's second time, I try to layer these moments of insight inside the puzzle, and I only publish a new puzzle in the rule set if I'm able to do so.
Is there something that makes you more likely to go back to the rule set? Like maybe you haven't used all the ideas you had in the first one?
I'd say more often than not, no. I only, so I came back to the coordinates Sudoku rule set, the slingshot rule set, and the compass rule set often, because there is I think some depth, not equally for all of them, but I couldn't imagine setting a pivot Sudoku today that would be interesting, because I think it's too simple a rule set. So you would need to really make something different, which could be an interesting challenge. But I have other ideas. So yeah, I think, well, okay, this is a very low number of rule sets that I've come back to. So more often than not, I don't come back.
Is there any rule set that you've made that you think has more depth than has been explored? Like you wish it had caught on more than it has?
Yes. The exploded compass Sudoku. It's amazing what you can do with that. It's a pain. It's really a pain to set, and I understand why people don't, because it's close construction times 10. So I'm sick, and so I do that, and I spend the time. But this is I'm surprised by the kind of stuff. I'm not trying to compliment myself. I'm just looking at the design space, and I think there are interesting things. This one is so it's imploded. This one not exploded. But this one is a bit different because so ZetaMask solved it on screen, and I chickened out for this one because I could have made the puzzle without the dots and added a rule, which was that there was a disjoint set in the center of the boxes, and maybe you could solve it with just this information, but I was not able to, so I chickened out. But the exploded one. No, this is the exploded one. I'm sorry. The imploded one ones are it's a very fertile. No, it's exploded. Sorry. Yeah, it's a very fertile.
Sorry, I switched back and forth.
Yeah, it's a very fertile ground for exploration, I think. But also indexing, because most of my puzzles are about indexing. So when I try to find a new rule set, basically I try to give a meaning to elements in the grid. So what does a digit mean? What does an arrow mean?
Right.
And so they're all about indexing in some way. And from the coordinate Sudoku to the remote clone Sudoku to the pass-through to the leapfrog to the slingshot, they're all about, okay, look, this number means something different. And so this is how I can find new rule sets. It's just, okay, let's find a new meaning for a digit or an arrow and see if it's interesting.
Do you tend to solve Sudokus very often? I mean, I don't think I've seen like the solver name Stéphane Bura very often on many puzzles, but
no, we don't.
No,
I'm not good enough.
Not a big solver.
And I don't take pleasure in it. I would have to spend a lot of time to get good at it, and so I really don't. I appreciate watching people solve, and I've learned a lot, and that's how I can create difficult puzzles because I understand a little bit about this, but it would be time that I take out of other occupations and hobbies, and it's not a joyful moment for me when I have to solve my own puzzles. So. No.
When I had to solve a few of your puzzles to fill out the background here, and I noticed that it was actually quite hard to get started with one of your puzzles. You really had to sort of bear down and understand the implications of the rules before you could even start to mark in things in the grid.
Yes, I try to at least have a spot in the grid when you're saying, okay, if this rule set exists, this is weird. Like in in the remote clone Sudoku, I start with a box with 8 clues, and if you look at this, you're immediately given clues about how the rule set works, because you understand that, okay, 9 can only goes in the empty cell, because it cannot point to something in the grid, and you wonder, okay, I have to put a 1 on the clue, on one of the clues, so it must be on the border, and suddenly you're thinking in this mental space, and in the slingshot Sudoku variant that I made, usually there is a column, box, or that you have to look at, and the exploded compass Sudoku also, the one with the 5s, which is probably my favorite. This is, which one is it? It's
This one.
yes, this one. The central cell is really interesting. How can you do that? How can you have regions that totally envelop for this cell, and you know that it is some weak point, and the northwest corner also is upper left corner is also very weak. So yeah, I try to do that, but sometimes, as you say, you need to fully understand the rules. Well, self-determination 1 and 2 are like this. You have to think about the rules before you can do anything with the puzzle. But it's a specific type of challenge.
Right. So when you're making sort of the initial steps of the puzzle, are you looking to put in this thing that looks really weird, or are you more thinking about how do I get them to apply the general implications of the rules? Like, are you looking for some kind of specific break-in, or are you just sort of putting different deductions based on the rules in the grid?
Well, the way I test a new set is I lie down in my bed and I try to find a break-in in my head. So most of the time it's a very small part of the grid that I can imagine, and and it has to be interesting to sustain my intentions. So if I have this, if I can say, okay, with this rule set I can make this interesting bit work, this is most probably the break-in for the puzzle, and hopefully it's something that is visible in the final grid. So the box in the remote clones, or the 5 at the center, or the exploded compass Sudoku, or the arrows pointing at one another in confrontation, the slingshot confrontation Sudoku, this kind of thing. Is, oh, can this work?
Yeah.
And if I can make it work in my mind, it's probably a good break.
Something like the 5 in the center with the central cell in that one, or the box with eight cells filled out with the clone Sudoku. It almost seems humorous to me. Do you find humor in these silly ideas?
Yes. It's joyful. So it's not only joyful to see Simon get to the point. It's joyful to imagine solvers think, oh, this is what that means, and yes, I aim for that. So I don't always succeed, but this is what motivates me to keep making puzzles. Thinking, oh, this is a cool thing that exists, and can I share it? Can I show it to people and have them walk the path with me, and not just solving a puzzle, but discovering a new property of the world. So as I said, I make it easy by inventing my own rules, but still sharing this mental space, adding a little bit to the puzzle world. it's joyful to me. Yes.
Speaking about sort of inventing your rules and how you would go about setting up a break-in, Kodak had asked an interesting question related to this. He asked, how do you evaluate the potential of a new rule set? He gave some other comments on it, but that's basically the question.
Yes. I tried. I just tried.
Yeah.
I have a lot of bad ideas too. So because it's uncharted territory, I just do it, and I don't prejudge ideas. I mean, if you look at my the list of puzzles I've made, I have some puzzles that are just, well, it's just one idea, and let's look at what it does, and they're not super well received, they're not super good, but I'm satisfied because it's a new idea. So I try it, and like the one with I can't even. It's a very simple idea, but I've never seen a puzzle with that. So I created it, and it worked for a while, and at some point it worked, and it was enough. Uh-huh. Can you hear me? It was lagging for a bit.
Sorry, you were definitely cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
The puzzle I can't even, which is a very funny title also.
And it's a very silly idea. And as I said, as soon as it worked, I made the diagonal work, and as soon as it worked, I released it, and it was okay. So I don't know. Maybe half of my ideas become a puzzle because sometimes it's just a silly idea. I try to make it work, and sometimes I'm surprised. The invisible arm puzzle, I didn't know it would work, and it worked, and it was interesting. So yeah, to tell you the difference between me and most of the people that you interviewed, it's about the not between Sudoku. Not between Sudoku is something that I did a while back. Can you find it? The idea was, well, there was this new variant that was about inside, well, what's the name? Between Lights, yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried to do something that was not between, and the puzzle was interesting, and it worked, and it had a weird rule set, but I'm not Riff Clown, I'm not Tolcat. I would never have come up with lockout lines, because I will never have spent the time to make it a tool more than a rule set. And I'm very envious on the ability to do so, but this is the puzzle that I did. The same thing happened with Codec, by the way. So my second feature was stack sandwich Sudoku, and I was and I was totally stunned by what he did with Lunchbox, which used the same rule set, which is much clearer, much more elegant, and he understood full rule set and made a much better puzzle. But I'm glad that I did stack sandwich because it allowed the Codec to make his own puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, you just, once you have an idea, you just put it out there, you're not trying to find the best idea or whatever.
Yeah, so there are some puzzles I'm very proud of, but usually they come at the end of a series, or they took me a very long time to create. and most of the time when I have the idea, you don't have to blush here. This is an awesome puzzle. Uh, uh, when I have an idea, I just want to share it because um, I don't care the amount of uh, fail I can get out of a puzzle. Is just I just want the idea to be out there, as I said earlier. So I'm very gratified when people like it, and I am very gratified by the people who like my puzzles. I have very few compared to the people that you interviewed. I have a very small number of solves for my puzzles, but I have a very faithful group of solvers, and I'm so thankful that I know that there are people who appreciate this kind of experimentation. I feel like an indie setter. So
You feel like a what, sorry?
yeah, an indie setter.
An indie setter? That's a funny way to put it. You're not a triple A Sudoku setter. You're an indie setter.
Exactly.
That's an interesting question from Robert Tolbert. Is there an idea that you've seen in other puzzles that you're sort of like, oh, I wish I had come up with that. That's such a great idea.
Yeah, often so there were some puzzles done by Harop that use snakes and or properties of numbering cages that were very interesting. This week there was this Marble Run puzzle. So this is something that I've never been able to make work. I'd like very much. So puzzles are static. You have to understand where the numbers are, and it is a static state. And I really want to have a puzzle that feels like a process, and Marble Run is a step in that direction that I hadn't considered. That is very interesting. Like, okay, there is something transforming inside the puzzle, and you feel like something is actually going on as you're solving it. Hello, and yeah. I like this kind of stuff. And the 159 variant is totally awesome. Uh, I'm always well. I'm not jealous of ideas, but I'm always inspired by great ideas. Even if it doesn't mean that I will do a variation of the rule set, but think, okay, this is a direction in which you can expand the design field for puzzles. So when someone does that, it's always inspiring to me.
Definitely. I mean, just like video games, like we were talking about at the beginning.
Yes, exactly. So the because video games are restricted by the hardware, it takes a special kind of mind to say, okay, I will transcend what a button on the pad means, what clicking on the screen means, or what the keys on your keyboard means, and it will do something new. And when somebody does that, when somebody plays with time and perception and information, like in the Return to the Obra Dinn, or takes from the same designer, takes spots a different game in puzzle and makes a game with paper, please. Papers, please. Suddenly, it's okay. You've opened something that I wasn't aware could exist, and it's just like hacking your way through the jungle to open the path, and maybe I can push it.
Yeah, definitely. I know you're someone who took sort of a break from puzzles, like a bit of a It was quite a long break. I'm not sure exactly how long, but do you think that's changed sort of your perspective on setting and puzzles in general by taking this long break? Sorry, 1 second.
It was more the the community had changed, and the channel, the CTC channel, had changed, um, and the CTC Discord server had grown very
Yeah.
much. I was there in the beginning, and it was a small community, even if it was hundreds of people, but there were few active people, and I felt fine there. But as I said, I'm an introvert, and when the community grew a lot, it was a bit too much for me to keep up and to be part of it, to have social presence. And also, the community grew in a different direction from what I was interested in. So there were people who were exploring existing rules and discovering amazing things about existing rules.
Hmm.
And the enjoyment and the dynamic of the community was around that. And it's also what happened on the channel. So I have submitted a few puzzles of mine that were weird to the
Yeah.
channel after having been featured a few times, and they weren't selected, and that's fine because I don't expect my, my puzzle should be solved on the channel, but I could definitely feel that there was a swing of the pendulum in the other direction, more about, okay, look at the beauty of what an arrow Sudoku can be, or what a German whisper can do, and that's not what I do. So yeah, I took a step back, and also I made a couple of solutions that are puzzles that I really really liked. So I thought I was wrong, and the pendulum is swinging back right now. There is a balance, and also the fact that the gas R thing means that um, there is a whole part of the audience that is served by those,
Right.
and so Simon can do weird puzzles from time to time, and he's done a lot in these past few weeks compared to the whole year. So yeah, but I'm not. Well, I was very happy. I submitted self-determination because I was proud of it, and it got no answer, of course.
Of
But
course.
I think because so Idikos solved it, and then Piatato, and then Fistomefel, and I think I think that helped
Hmm.
tremendously. uh, Get back on top of the pile. I don't know how it works, but because I was pretty proud that I hadn't submitted anything for 18 months before that.
Right. Uh, so let's talk about self-determination because that is definitely a weird puzzle, and of course, I think most people who will be watching this from like the current era of CTC will know you from that puzzle. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's start by talking about KNT's point, uh, asking how much computer assistance do you use while setting? Like he doesn't mean F puzzles. He means like writing scripts to find uh, like actual grids. Because he just says he struggles to believe you just randomly stumbled across self-determination. And if you did, then you're probably a wizard. And I think you're a wizard either way. But um,
Um, so I've never used uh, code to solve my puzzles before,
mhm,
but I did for a very specific part of this one, and I will explain it. Because so the challenge was not finding the rule set.
mhm,
Uh, the challenge was I wanted to make a puzzle with an empty grid,
right,
and so I wanted to find a puzzle that worked with an empty grid. And um, if you look at a puzzle I did 2 years ago, called the coordinate Sudoku loops. There was an interesting property. It's it's in the last page of my puzzle at the top. There was a very interesting property in this puzzle, and it's so coordinate Sudoku. I made 3 of them, so it's a rule set I love so much. It's clear. And so the property was very close to what ended up in self-determination. Is that so? The idea is similar. Every time a cell is joined by a line, the 2 numbers form the coordinates of a cell, and the value of the cell is not the row, but here it's the box. And it's an idea I came back to in a self-determination 2 that I posted recently. If you can scroll down a bit, please. This version of the puzzle is about these loops. And these loops have a very interesting property. When you have a loop that goes around a box, it means that you have 8 pairs of coordinates, and one that is not. So you that is not referred. You have a digit that is not used, and so that means that you index all the 3s, all the 7s, and all the 5s in the grid, except some of them that are in the loop, and which means that they're the ones that are on the diagonal, and so you can deduce from that there is a 5 in row 8 and column 2, or that there is because that's where the 7 is, or that there is a 6 in row 2, column 8, because that's where the 3 is on the diagonal. And I found it so beautiful, so amazing that this property existed. And when I was looking at self-reference, I came back to that. So it's a 2-year-old puzzle. Say, okay, can I generalize that?
Yeah.
And I tried to find a rule set, because it was such a pain to set that puzzle. You cannot imagine. So I looked for a grid and a rule set that would work with this kind of reference, and I experimented with a lot. At first I wanted to use a Sudoku grid, and the rule set was much more convoluted because it all rests on the diagonal, and so I have to do very weird stuff with the rules to make it work. Right. But at some point, I understood that it was clean, that if you took the n-1 column, it worked very well. And I experimented. I could find easily the 4x4 puzzle. There are 2, the 4x4 solution, I mean, there are 2 5x5 solutions. And no 6x6, no 7x7, and I was a bit lost. And so I started experimenting with 8x8, and I found something that worked, but I wasn't sure if it was unique. I wasn't sure if I was totally lost or not. And so I wrote code to test if it was unique, and it was not. So to put a clue. And also, I had to put a clue because it's too hard to start, and I wanted to indicate the importance of the last column by putting the 1 in the last row to help understanding the logic of the puzzle. So I did use some assistance, but not for finding the rule set with the grid, but for making sure that it worked, and that it was unique, which it was not.
Right.
but I did not do that for self-determination 2 because it's an easier puzzle. So it's easier to solve. It took me some time to find the correct clues and the correct message that I wanted to pass to the solver, which I won't spoil if you are interested in something. But these three squares send a message saying, okay, this is how you should solve this puzzle, and this is what is important.
Yeah, the message might be a little bit fuzzy, but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's the joy to say, aha.
yes, yeah, moment.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
Yes, but it's an easier puzzle because self-determination is about coordinates, reflexive and reciprocating coordinates.
mhm.
Here, it's about a different thing that is easier to once you find a digit, you find a lot of digits. So it's
How did, how did you react to the solve of self-determination by Simon? I thought it was interesting, especially the second half when he, he seemed very confused why all the digits were going in.
well. This is weird. At first, I was totally mortified. I make these puzzles to create joy, and having and seeing Simon tortured like that, it was awful for me. I could barely look at the screen, and so it was hard. But so there are two moments in the video where Simon said, "Hang on," and and this is where he has these haha moments, and where he suddenly everything unfolds, and it was worth it. But there are a lot of things that, because apparently he's extremely bright and intuitive, but I don't know, this didn't work for him. So there are a few consequences of the rule set that he didn't see, like he noticed the wrapping around of the columns, but he didn't use it in the soul.
Interesting.
He didn't notice that the grid is full of pairs of sorry, I don't remember the name. Daily patterns for a reason,
Oh,
and you don't use see, uh, but he followed most of the soul path that I am in mind, and he succeeded in completing the puzzle. So that's great. But
yeah.
but I didn't imagine that it was so hard to see that the last column was so special. So I hit a spot, a weak spot in, for Simon, and I was very surprised, but so satisfied with it. And it's always nice to have Simon call you a genius. So, well,
Yeah. It's always nice. Anyone really to call you a genius is pretty great.
exactly.
Uh, yeah, I would probably be mortified if Simon spent the first 7 minutes complaining that he had to solve a puzzle of mine. That would be an experience.
Absolutely.
How often do you discuss your ongoing projects with other setters or other people?
I stopped doing that. So I used to put my puzzles on the testing channel on Discord.
Mhm.
usually got no solves, and when they did, there was no real feedback. So so I go to that, and I understand, as I said earlier, I understand the community has evolved, and when you post a weird puzzle like this one, I posted I didn't post it in the testing channel, but I posted it in a recommendation to get something back, and I understand that it takes a lot of time to get into my puzzles and a lot of commitment, and for a lot of people in the community, I haven't earned the level of trust that they need to go into this puzzle not knowing what to expect, and that's also why I'm so grateful for the people who still solve my puzzles. So I no longer do that, which means that sometimes I make mistakes and I try to correct them. I often make mistakes when I try to use negative constraints because I love them and they hate me. So, so it happened. Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I have one question here because you've been studying for so long, that you were definitely around before like the CTC Discord even existed, and before puzzles were as regularly tested or vetted as they are nowadays. Did you have many mishaps with saying a broken puzzle being published in the early days?
Yeah, with negative constraints mostly. I forgot a dot, an arrow, or something like that,
Right.
and I had to correct it. But and the first compass Sudoku also was ambiguous. So Udicos helped me solve that. Udicos is the only person I collaborated with, and it was some the cryptid puzzle hunt for CTC, and it was totally awesome. He's one of the people who are able to take a weird rule set of mine and transcend it. He did a slingshot sandwich puzzle, which is amazing, that I could never come up with. And the collaboration was great, but because we were making something that we were complementary on this project, so it was very cool. He did stuff with the rule set I invented that I couldn't imagine, and I wrapped the whole hunt in something that he couldn't do. So that was very cool. But it's an exception.
Yeah. I mean, did you, when you guys were building this puzzle hunt for CTC, which is an OG puzzle hunt, by the way, it's I want to say the first or second puzzle hunt I ever solved, and it's amazing. If someone hasn't solved it and gone back and solved it, go solve it. It's so good. Um,
Thank you.
what was it like? Did you guys end up sort of collaborating on setting each of the puzzles individually, or did you go off and set like one puzzle each for these parts?
We split the puzzles, but we agreed on the overall ID, which was um, based puzzle on inductive logic instead of purely deductive logic. So most of the puzzles, almost all of the puzzles we solve today are you make deductions,
Mm-hmm.
and all puzzle hunt is about finding patterns
Mm-hmm.
and understanding rules from examples.
Yeah.
And weird connections between rules for the last puzzle. And so so it was a very different kind of work. The preparation, we were talking about how do we present those rules, which new rules would be interesting to put into the hand, and then the work was let's make interesting puzzles with those, and we split the puzzles, and so mine has a weird ones with arrows and good stuff, and Educo Sakash are the more mathy ones, and we did the last one, which is a beauty, and tested back and forth and commented and tweaked, and also I must really thank Mark, because he was a big supporter. He gave us great feedback, and we had two versions of this hand, and the second version is much better because of his feedback. So yeah, it was a very pleasant experience. And thank you for your kind words.
When you finally like put it all together and you were going to release it, did you guys were you worried that it wasn't going to go over well with the community? Like, it is very different from everything else, right?
Yes, and the reception on the Patreon channel was so amazing, so amazing. I mean, the people were interacting, trading clues, trading hints, being so, because they understood what we were trying to do, so created haha moments, and we could see in real time people experiencing them and congratulating each other for reaching a certain step in each puzzle. It was a big moment of joy for both Akash and I, and a big ego boost, because we had worked a lot to make this high quality, as high quality as we could. So yeah, we were surprised that the reception was so good, because yeah, it was so different, and nobody expected something like this.
It's interesting. Sorry, one second. Sorry. My nose picks the worst times to act up. It's interesting. I guess this is it sort of fits into the instructionless category of puzzles, but unlike other instructionless puzzles, it isn't like the rule sets aren't related to other established rule sets. They're just completely out of the box, out of the blue. Have you tried setting, or have you looked at setting an instructionless puzzle in more of a traditional style ever?
I don't know what it would look like, actually. No, I haven't. I don't know how we do that, because as I said, I want to create this moment of insight. So if I think it would be an obstacle for me to reach this point, but maybe I set a puzzle that was not very good, but that was interesting, where I gave 81 givens, and so you have to understand what's going on with the rule set. It's not about Sudoku. It's about, okay,
Right.
going beyond the traditional way of thinking about Sudokus. But I'm not sure. If you can point me in the right direction to do something like that, maybe.
No worries. I don't think it's as much your style as the interesting puzzle hunt that you made.
But maybe, yeah, good. I mean, the examples in the third puzzle, the one with the arrows, in tracking the cryptid, could be in the grid. It could be in the grid.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I could probably do something like that. Yeah, yeah. Okay, you got me thinking now.
Are you someone who would set puzzles even if no one would solve them? Like, do you find inherent joy in setting the puzzles?
Yes, yes, and this is mostly what's happening right now. I most of my puzzle is solved. So, but, and again, I'm not dismissing the people who solve my puzzle. On the contrary, but yes, I would. I I like the idea of the noosphere and the noosphere, the sphere, the domain of ideas, and that if you create something on your own, if you have a new idea, it enters the domain and it's available for everyone. And so I would, and I still do. I still do create things just for the pleasure of doing it. Yeah.
Let's try these questions that you had asked of me. Daniel Silverstone asked a few of the Lipton, pivot, and Proust questions. So he had asked,
Sure.
what is your favorite word?
I really like words that are unique and very specific to one thing.
Okay.
Like one weird thing, like Chrysalism is a word that I like. It's the cozy, amniotic feeling you get when you hear the rain outside. Or fulgurite. Fulgurite is the object created by lightning hitting sand. Or it's beautiful. Just Google it, fulgurite.
Interesting.
Um, and imaginary words. There is a book written by Douglas Adams, the guy who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, called The Meaning of Life, really, Liff, and where he invents words. And there is one that I keep thinking about all the time, every time I cross the street, which is story. Story is the kind of walk you adopt when you cross the street and there is an approaching car, and it makes it seems like it makes it seem like you're going faster, but you're not.
Yeah.
There's no on your speed.
Sort of like a speed walk in a way.
Yes, exactly. But with no speed. And,
Yeah, with no
and this
speed.
kind of stuff, kind of unique words or attacks, which is a word that means that a given word is used only once in a text.
Right, yeah.
This kind of stuff, really like, well, words are beautiful, and when they're meaningful, when they have a specific meaning, I love that.
Cool. Much better answer than I had. What is your least favorite word?
Oh, this is harder.
Yeah, that's harder, I think. I can't remember what I said actually. Oh, I know I said persons. I remember that actually.
Oh, yeah. I think it's more an expression. I've never seen someone. I think it must exist, but I've never seen someone use the phrase "I'll be the devil's advocate" in good faith. So I hate this expression. I play the devil's advocate and explain to you why you're wrong. Uh, so yeah, that's my
Yeah.
least favorite saying.
I mean, often people say that when there's no real reason to be arguing about it. They're just doing it just for no reason, essentially. So yeah, that is.
And well, I work with a lot of creative, and a lot of people are very nice, but they all have ideas about how things should be. So this is the people who are the less friendly, let's say, the less compassionate, use this sentence just to be annoying.
Exactly. Um, okay, what sound or noise do you love?
Oh, it's chrysalism. It's rain outside. It's so uh, soothing to me.
Hmm.
So rain outside.
And then what sound or noise do you hate?
Do I hate? Buzzing, mosquito buzzing. It's something went wrong. Something went very wrong. I can hear.
Yeah, that is quite an annoying noise. Yeah.
It's
And then they had asked pivot number 9, which is if you're reincarnated as some other plant or animal, what would it be?
well, if if you had asked me that a few years ago, I would have answered an otter, because it seems like they're so playful all the time,
Yeah.
and also there are so many cute videos of otters holding hands and caring for their babies. But I found out that they're very cruel to other animals, and so a gentle otter,
A gentle otter.
yes, playful and gentle and not cruel.
And then what is your favorite virtue?
Virtue,
Virtue.
uh, VIRTU.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Um, compassion. Compassion. The ability to understand somebody different. Please. That's how the world can heal. So yeah.
When you don't say devil's advocate.
Oh yeah. For instance, being open-minded
Yeah,
is part of it, because if you understand someone who is different from you, you have to be open-minded.
yeah.
So yeah, that's the most important virtue. Not to be afraid of what is different, and being able to understand the other.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay, moving on from the Lipton Proust questions. Uh, what what's a puzzle that's had sort of the biggest impact on you as a setter? Like, what was the most important puzzle for your development? Is another way to
One
phrase it.
that I set.
Yes, that you said.
Uh, it was a puzzle. It's parity section Sudoku. Uh, it's a puzzle that is not rated. It has 10 solves. And it's it it took me so long to make, and I found it elegant. Um, and I didn't know I could achieve this level of elegance. Um, and I got great feedback from Richard Stock. Richard has been very kind to me. He has used a lot of my rule sets in his series, Sudoku variant series, and usually made better puzzles with these rule sets. But this one, um, so one of the reasons I stopped uh, publishing puzzles is this one, and the next one was assorted sandwiches Sudoku. Um, I like these two a lot because they have just been they demand a lot of ways of thinking about the same problem with the rule set. And I wrote for both of them. I wrote a 10-page solution that I sent to CTC, and at the time it was not what they were looking for, or I don't know why it didn't resonate for them, but it was a bit dispiriting that my two favorite puzzles were totally ignored, and it's and they're my two favorite, and they're two of the few that are not rated, and so it taught me two things. Once that I could be the arbiter of what I thought was good, um, and that I didn't have to please people or seek the approval of the channel, that I could really be weird on my own in my own space, but also that I could achieve this. So after my first combat Sudoku, for instance, I like the rule set, and I said, okay, can I make a good one? And because I knew I could make a nice puzzle, and I think the logic in this one in parity section is very interesting. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, so if you're interested, look at it yourself. But there are so many intertwined constraints that play well together. And also it was at the time I didn't have a solver, so I was very impressed with myself by that I could do that without a solver.
Definitely. And I think that's a good piece of advice for people is don't worry about if other people are rating your puzzles or if CTC is not solving your puzzles. Make what you want to make, right?
Yeah, and I fell into the trap because as I said, it was totally unexpected for me to be featured. So I fell into the trap of trying to please CTC, so after I saw the compass video, compass puzzle video that Simon said, and Simon said it was his favorite non-Sudoku puzzle type. Said, well, I will set a compass Sudoku puzzle on automatically be featured, and it was a silly way of thinking about that. But the good thing is that I found a design space that was interesting, and the first puzzle was not good anyway. So as usual. So I was able to explore a bit more, and that was cool.
That's an interesting question from Robert Tolbert in the chat. He says, do you think the puzzle rating system represents your puzzles correctly? No?
It's very hard to find the difficulty rating. So most of my puzzles are. I think most people don't try to solve my puzzle because they think they're harder than they are. But on the other hand, I cannot put 3 stars for a puzzle that has a new rule set. Right. So most of my puzzles are 4 stars, and those which I think are very hard are 5. But 4 stars it looks like it's going to be a challenge. An insurmountable challenge, and so I probably puzzle, which is not really the case, I think, because I want you to experience these moments of insight. So it's just that most of the puzzle that solvers solve on the site follow rules that they know very well, and so it is an extra effort. But and for the ratings, I'm happy that So since few people solve my hardest puzzle, I get very high ratings.
Yeah.
Because they like my puzzles. So I don't know if it's representative of anything.
Exactly.
But it's very satisfying to have
Yeah.
to have I don't know 10 puzzles with 100% rating or 99. It's awesome. It's awesome, but I don't think it means anything.
Means that there's definitely at least 10 people who really like that puzzle. So
Yes,
good.
exactly. And I know the names.
Yeah, I think what you're saying for the difficulty rating is that like there needs to be more information than just out of 5 stars. Like it needs to have some kind of
Yeah.
parts to it. Like is this difficult because it's a new rule set? Is it difficult because it's actually the steps are hard? Like what is the complexity versus the I'm trying to think of the words that other people have used to describe this phenomenon. Complexity and difficulty, I guess, is what people say.
Yeah. There is this theory. Self-determination comes from because I like the word, but it comes from self-determination theory, which is a theory about intrinsic motivation, the stuff that is internal to you that motivates you to act, to have certain activities, and there are 3 of them, which I forget. So really, it's the desire to connect to people, to care for people. Autonomy, desire to be the agent of changes in the world, in your life, and competence, which is mastery, which is a desire to grok something, to be good at something. And I think puzzles are a way of satisfying this intrinsic motivation if you bring people to this moment of insight. I don't even remember the question, but so this is the kind of stuff that should be part of the rating. Oh, this is not just a difficult puzzle, but it's a puzzle that will make you think about something else. I think I landed perfectly.
Sorry, my cat was having a bit of a almost throw up, I think.
I'm sorry. No problem.
I think he's good now. Sorry, it's confusing because cat's wheezing and cat's trying to throw up sound very similar, and he has asthma. So I'm not sure if he's wheezing because he has asthma or if he is trying to throw up. Anyways, I'll keep an eye on him. But sorry to interrupt. I noticed that a lot of your puzzle names are very descriptive, and that's generally not the trend these days to be descriptive with the puzzle names. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's fun to come up with names that are evocative of the thought process or the challenge. It's just that when I started doing it, I just wanted to say, okay, this is what you will spend your time on. This is not only a compass Sudoku, it's a sub-compass Sudoku. So yeah, I didn't feel the need to I'm already asking a lot of the solvers, so I wanted to be straightforward.
Right.
So I understand the appeal. Probably in the future to find cool names for my puzzle, the titles for my puzzle, but as I say, I already ask a lot. So it's a step. it's a step that I don't want them to have to take.
Codex is already hard enough to come up with a catchy, descriptive name for a new rule set.
Yeah, Slingshot was really an inspiration. I was very happy. Leapfrog also was cool. It's kind of a variant of a Slingshot. Pass-through was okay because it really described what's going on. It's not really original, but well, it worked. So and remote stuff, yeah, well, it's remote. It's both descriptive
Yeah.
and new. So
Ish,
there you are.
Ish2s is asking if we've already talked about Slingshot, and we haven't. And Ish2s did ask, how did you come up with Slingshot? Get the Slingshot rule, and what do you think about the Slingshot rule now?
So it was my first attempt at a pivot to do something with indexing, to give a meaning to digits, and I felt very lucky to have found this. So this is pretty simple when you look at it. You can throw a number down the grid at a certain distance. But it was new, and it allowed to create a new kind of thinking, which is exactly what I was looking for. But the problem was that it is not a deep rule. Once you understand how the rule set works, all the puzzles start looking the same. So you look at the ones that are at the slingshots that are close to the edge, and you solve that. So when I continued publishing slingshot puzzles, but I put a lot of constraints on them. They had to show something new. So like the one that Mark solved, the centripetal slingshot Sudoku, was about, okay, I want you to think differently about those arrows. I don't want you to think about let's find those that are close to the edge. There are no arrows that are close to the edge. So can you still think with those? Or confrontation, which has this rule of arrows pointing at one another, which is okay. This is super constrained, but super hard to decrypt. And contrary to what people said in the solve, centripetal is not about the Fist Eiffel ring, but well, if you use it, it works too. But you don't need it, and so and I hit a wall. This was the limit of what I could do with those. But I discovered that it was a good rule to have in addition to other rules. As I said, Coast did something incredible with sandwiches, and I started exploring with virtual killer cages with invisible killer slingshots, and I was surprised to see that some people did did some very nice low-level difficulty puzzles and with tweaks, and that the rule set had a little bit of life of its own. So I think it's nice to have as one of the rules of your puzzle, but on its own, it is fairly limited. Same with remote clones. I've seen that. So remote clones is probably got a more exposure than Slickshot, because I puzzle for Sudoku Grand Prix, and so a lot of people had to learn the rule set, and some people designed the Sudokus with this rule set. So you will probably find more of those, but on their own, they're quite limited. So you have to pair them with something else. But so I mean, it's very hard to do a good puzzle with just killer cages. So if you use slingshot or clones or remote clones and with another rule, I think it can be interesting.
Right. Before we get too far in, we're about 15 minutes out from. Oh, well, I guess a little bit more than 15 minutes, but because we started a bit late. But let's do the rapid fire questions, or answer one or the other of two options. So as quickly as you can, or as we had last time, take maybe a minute or two. You know, local or global deductions.
Global.
Global. Coloring or good lifting.
Good living because I'm bad at coloring, and I'm bad at film in general. So when I color, I'm good live. I can see patterns. Otherwise, I couldn't see them.
Fair enough. Geometry or arithmetic.
Geometry, of course.
Penpa or F puzzles.
Well, I really try to have Eric add arrows to F puzzles, and
Yes.
it never did. So Peppa.
Sudoku or pencil puzzles.
Well, I've never made one Sudoku puzzle because the constraints help my creativity. So maybe one day I'll do pencil puzzles, but it's I don't know. I still find Sudoku interesting after all these years. All these 2 years.
Yeah,
So,
all these 2 years. It feels much longer than it has been, I'm sure.
yes.
It's because the brain is absorbing so many new information.
Exactly.
Do you prefer chaos or order?
Chaos.
I love how you say that with a smile. Cages or lines?
9-cell cages.
9-cell cages, you say?
Yes.
Okay. Dots or arrows?
No, arrows.
Arrows,
Of
easy.
course.
To disambiguate a puzzle, a given or a clue?
I've reconciled myself with the idea of giving a clue, and that sometimes it's the best thing you can do for the puzzle. But if I can avoid that, so the first remote clone has a single clue because that was the best way to present the idea. And if I had worked a few more hours on it, I probably would have been able to remove it. But as I said, I'm impatient and I publish it as is. So I'm okay with clues. When they're really needed and it's the best thing for the puzzle.
Do you prefer inside or outside clues?
Sorry.
Inside. Yeah, I don't. Oh, I guess there's a few puzzles you have with outside clues, like the assorted sandwiches and such.
Yeah, and I made a weird thing. Odd even the odd even one has sandwiches with parity, and odd even sandwich Sudoku, and it has a lot of outside clues everywhere on the grid, but it's less elegant. I think I don't like little killers. So.
Right. Yeah. I thought the puzzle triples was pretty fun. You use little killers, but it was interesting in a very unique way.
Yeah, this is the my renaissance when I started setting again, and stuff like draws and triplets are much
Triplets,
more
right?
Playful about setting, and triplets is silly. It's just silly.
Yeah.
But it's silly fun. Like I give myself these constraints of having each clue 3 times in the grid and close to one another, and yeah, it's silly and it's fun. It's not a hard puzzle. Triplets and draws was something else. It was okay indexing, but with recombination of digits, and it was a very different way of using arrows. So I like this one. I like this one a lot too.
Yeah, I still can't wrap my hand around this one, but I think the idea is interesting. There's a lot of puzzles that you have that I sort of
I
look at it for a few minutes. I'm like, that sounds really cool, but I have no idea what to do with that information.
oh, the break-in is relatively well. It's a little bit relatively telegraphed once you understand this, because but yeah, I totally understand that. I'm really surprised that you asked me to be interviewed, because I'm so out of your comfort zone, and I appreciate that that really. So it's very kind of you to have solved some of my puzzles, because this is weird stuff. I know,
Definitely.
I know.
I mean, we need a variant, a variation of people, right? We can have some standard people in and some chaos people. Do you have any pet peeves while setting, like things that you get annoyed with when you're setting a puzzle?
Well, I love chaos construction, and it's such a pain to set. Uh, I really want Ronks to do something about it, and get this tool and help me set, because uh, I know what I want to do, and I spend hours on something that breaks at the last second,
Yeah,
and it's so painful, so
definitely.
painful. It's my own fault because of it.
It's those
It's just
puzzles like
crazy.
sort of get your hopes up by having so many beautiful and cascading deductions, and then it cascades into complete failure. Um,
Yes, yes, and the first exploded compass Sudoku that I did, uh, there was such a beautiful logic in the bottom right corner, and everything worked. And in the bottom left corner, two digits broke it at
oh.
the end, and it was, no, can you do this to me? And to restart everything. So yeah, yeah, this is my pet peeve.
How long does it usually take you to set a puzzle?
Until I finish it. I hope so. So most of them. Uh, so if I'm lucky, 5 6 hours, and
Right.
if I'm not, uh, a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, and if I'm really really unlucky, like with self determination, took me a week. Took me 3 weeks to self determination. So,
Do you usually, if you can, do you sit down in one sitting and set it from start to end, or is it more like taking breaks and coming back to it every once in
I can't take a break.
a while?
Unless I have a work deadline, I can't take a break. I spend nights not sleeping in order to set a puzzle. So no, I'm really obsessed.
Jeez. So when you said 2 days, you meant literally 2 straight days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my word.
So the last uh, the exploded some compass Sudoku
Uh-huh.
that I published in January, after Setama solved two of my compass Sudoku. It made me want to go back to that. And it's the hardest puzzle that I've ever set with this rule set. And it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. So the
Explode some.
yeah, exploded some compass Sudoku.
Okay, yeah, I got it now.
And it's I was just crazy, because I remembered setting the first sum compass Sudoku, and it was so painful. And this one, yeah, it took me probably 3 full days to set.
Jeez. Do you have any
Reasonably
specific?
happy.
Yeah, definitely ecstatic when you finish a puzzle that takes you 3 or 4 days. A shard of soul as well. Codex says. Do you have any specific setters that you like look up to, or you go to for inspiration?
Yeah, well, of course, because I really like the quality of what he does. Jesper, he did a slingshot Philomeno that is amazing, and I was
Right.
never able to solve. I broke it so many times. And but the quality of his work is so impressive. Most of the setters that are popular right now are so outside of my own comfort zone that it's hard for me to find inspiration with them. I find inspiration in the beauty of the puzzle they create, but I have to. Zetamas is probably the closest because he experiments a lot with variants on the hard end of the scale.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm content in appreciating people who appreciate the beauty of these puzzles. But I'm mostly doing stuff on my own little corner
Right.
of the puzzle space.
How would you describe your reputation as a constructor? I think we've gotten a little bit into that, but
Yeah.
in a sentence or two.
The people who like my puzzles expect to be surprised. so
Right.
so that's a very cool image to have, I think. Hello.
He was making trouble, so. Do you think that perception of wanting to be surprised matches your own perception of your setting style?
Yeah. This is what I'm shooting for. The moments of insight, of haha realization.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I don't publish a puzzle if it's not there. Even
Right.
if it's a very small realization, like I have a few 2-star puzzles, and it's just okay. Have a look at that. It's just a funny idea. But even as I said, there are only 2 puzzles that don't follow the standard rules, the standard variants in my collection, and it's the longest and second longest palindrome, and
Right.
it's just because it was a funny exercise and it was surprising, but I can't, I don't master the other variants well enough to be able to create those surprise with them. So yeah.
The longest possible palindrome for real this time. It's an amusing name.
Yeah, because I thought I had it the first time. And this one is less beautiful than the previous one, the second longest possible palindrome. So it's fun to solve, but it's not a challenge. Well, it's more fun to have it as it exists.
Yes.
But the bread here was nice to create when I was setting it. So. But it's not a challenging puzzle.
Right. What's a question that you want to be asked, and what's your answer to that question?
Why are you so interested in self-reference? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, I talked about Martin Gardner, this who had a column in a Scientific American magazine about logic and math puzzles and games. And I discovered a lot of things reading this column, like the Game of Life, Conway's Game of Life. I did a puzzle about that when Conway died, or the paving of the plane with shapes, or so many things, and logical puzzles. And it was replaced by Douglas Hofstadter when he left the magazine. And Douglas Hofstadter is the author of Gödel, Escher, Bach, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning book, which talks about self-reference in art, in music, in science, in math, and he wrote a book called I Am a Strange Loop, which is about self-reference. Is life, basically. Is consciousness is about self-reference, and really, when you think about this, when you think about this kind of stuff on a design level, it really opens up a lot of possibilities. So it's a kind of well, that's why. That's why I'm interested in self-reference. That's why I love the Lisp programming language. That's why all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Thank you, David.
Yes, thank you, David. Jovial had asked if you could sum up what kinds of puzzles you enjoy to set in a few words, what would be those words? And is that the same or different than puzzles that you enjoy solving?
No, for the second part. And I don't enjoy solving puzzles. I'm much more interested. I'm much more interested in seeing the beauty of the rules, and I really admire you, Joey, for what you do and what Clover does. I'm in awe of this work because of the beauty of the cleanliness, the elegance of the puzzles you're able to create. The quality of I talk a lot about the quality of the puzzles that I like to create, but it's this, it's whatever the rule set moment that tickles your brain because it tickles a part that had never been tickled before, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good summary of our discussion, is that it tickles your brain in the right way. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up what we've talked about today. I thank you so much, Stéphane, for coming on and for reminding me a few minutes before. When are we gonna start the interview again? Oh, in an hour? Oh wait, no, now actually.
Well, thank you for having me. It's beautiful.
And thanks everyone for coming out. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Like the stream, all that good stuff. I haven't been monitoring the likes. Why is my brain weird like this sometimes? Unable to speak, you know. Next one announcement. Okay. Next one announcement's hard because I'm not 100% sure if the person who I think will be next time will be next time. Okay, let's assume that it will be, and then if it's not, then you guys will expect that in a couple weeks. So I have Scott Strosahl, another sort of OG setter from a while ago, who also took a break. I have him on the docket for some time, but he's obviously a very busy man, and we'll see if next week works out. But if not, that's a nice little tidbit for you guys who are sticking around to the end of this stream. if someone skipped to the end of the stream just to figure out the announcement, shame on you. Watch the whole interview. But for you guys who stuck out to the end, there's your little tidbit of this is coming soon. But I'm not sure if it will be next week. We'll have to discuss with Scott if he's available. But if not, then I'll announce someone else. But thank you, Stefan. This is great.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Yeah. And that'll be all. Okay. And